Hi everyone, thanks for checking in. It's Adam Coburn here at Low & Co Realty, and today we're looking at the Wellington real estate market for the month of October 2023 compared to October's 1 and 2 years ago respectively. In summary folks, Wellington values continue to rise, albeit slowly. My message for buyers has been consistent for a number of months now. Do not wait for conditions to improve. And for sellers, the market is firming, values are rising, not such a bad time to sell. So let's get into the detail. Median sale price in Wellington region, $795,000 October 2023 versus $833 a year ago. That's down 5%, so 5% is definitely a reduction, but it is a small reduction, smaller than what we've been seeing for quite some time now, sort of 18 months or thereabouts. And I've been saying for quite a long time now, since July 2022, that the market has been stabilizing. And in July 2022, median sale prices were just over 800. Now they're just under 800. And so that's consistent with the message that they've been broadly stable since then. Interestingly, in the last 4 months, we've seen a consistent rise, consistent increase, but overall the trend is broadly stable. If you've been following these videos, you know that I don't really pay too much attention to the median sale price because it's a reflection not only of underlying values but also the mix of properties that are sold in that month. So the better gauge for underlying values themselves is the Real Estate Institute House Price Index. So let's have a look at that. And here we start with the league tables. Look at the column on the right hand side there. That shows the degree to which the various regions around the country have dropped since the technical peak in October or November 2021. Wellington still is leading these league tables at 22.6% drop. But the gap between Wellington's fall since then and the rest of the country has been narrowing a little bit. And so you see they're not too dissimilar from Auckland's at 19% down and the country overall is 15% down. That gap has gotten a little bit narrower over the last 6 months or so as the market in Wellington has stabilised before a lot of the rest of the country have. Over the last 12 months, you see there, Wellington values dropped by just 3.4%. So that's still a drop, but it's not a big drop. So we're almost at the same level we were a year ago. Auckland has dropped less and New Zealand less. The difference is 0.9%. So Wellington, Auckland, New Zealand across the whole country, broadly similar is my message there. In the last 3 months, similar story. Wellington has gained 2.8%, Auckland 3.3%, and New Zealand overall 2.7%. So again, Wellington is pretty similar to the rest of the country on average. And if you look here at the 3-month results across the entire country there, every single region is showing values increasing over the last 3 months. So that's the first time we've seen that since we started this correction, if you like, in October, November 2021. Last month, I think we had, if I remember rightly, one region that had a negative a contraction in values in the last 3 months. So for the first time since we entered this correction, we are seeing every region across the country again in recovery mode, in growth mode. So if we look here at the graph here, focusing a little more closely in the Wellington region, so a negative 0.1% drop in values over the last month. Let's call that zero. 3 months at 2.8% growth, 1 year at negative 3.4%. And you see the shape of the graphs there. The blue line is the 1 month average. And so we've broadly been in positive territory for kind of 6 months or so now, but this most recent month in October, we've basically hit zero again for the first time in about 6 months or so. Is this renewed weakness? Is this just a blip? It sort of has felt a little bit, and the rest of the data which we'll show shortly, it has felt a little bit that the market was really quite strong, and then around the election time it started getting a little harder, or sort of the month before election again it started to get a little stickier, if you like, and this graph is consistent with that. Again, the orange line, that shows the 3 month average, the 3 months, not the average, sorry, the 3 month result. We've seen consistent improvement. Again, the message is clear. Since about July 2022, we saw the market starting to stabilise, and that orange line, the 3-month result, you can see has consistently been improving since then. And over the last 3 months, it has been broadly stable at kind of around that 3.5% level. Over the last 3 months there, comparing Wellington to Auckland and the rest of the country, again, you can see there, these are similar numbers. So Wellington's recovery over the last 3 months has been similar to the rest of the country. We were recovering before 3 months ago, though, broadly ahead of most other places. In the last year, you can see there that most territorial authorities in the Wellington region, that's Porirua City, Upper Hutt City, Lower Hutt and Wellington City, overall are down ever so slightly compared to 12 months ago, but only by a small amount. Broadly speaking, you could say Wellington values are almost up to the same level that they were a year ago. Good news for those property owners out there, vendors. Looking now at some other data here, new listings. How many new listings are we seeing in Wellington? So 634 in October 2023 versus 618. So that's pretty similar in a year ago, and 876 2 years ago. So obviously 634 is quite a big drop compared to 2 years ago. Very, very similar, up 3% on 12 months ago. Probably not statistically significant, let's call it broadly the same as a year ago. But look at the shape of that graph. The blue lines indicate the monthly results there, and clearly we've seen a big jump up in October compared to September and the other months before that. Now, does this mean we're seeing a whole lot more listings come to the market than normal? Well, it's more than September and August and so on, but that is typical for spring. This is just seasonal stuff. And in fact, the spring rush, as we would call it, has come very late this year, and probably this is because the election held back general activity and vendor activity in particular. And then as we came close to the election and vendors became more confident that they knew roughly what the result might look like, we saw stock starting to come to the market in greater volumes. But as I say, just a seasonal kind of a thing. So we look here at the average. You see the average for October, 754. So it's 634, although it's significantly more than August and September. It is still significantly short of what we would typically see in October. Of course, October deep into spring, summer is coming, and these tend to be big listing months. So new listing volumes in October up a lot compared to August and September, but still quite short compared to what's normal for October. And the next graph there, you can see that quite clearly. We were seeing deep discounts or far fewer listings coming to the market compared to the same month, 12 months earlier there, as represented by the blue bar chart, way below the x-axis there. Then we were recovering, and we've just nipped over 3%, just over zero for the month of October. But remember, that's October compared to last October, and last October was a deep discount from the previous October. So if you like, this most recent October is very similar to the one before, which was also a low month. What about number of sales, folks? Number of sales in October, 482 compared to 610 a year ago and 716 2 years ago. So this is a big drop compared to 2 years ago, and a significant drop even compared to 1 year ago. And again, if you compare it to the long-term average for October at 720. So 2 years ago we were at 716 in October. That's pretty typical for an October in Wellington. And 482, that is really anemic, folks. And so whilst we saw quite an increase in new listings coming on in October, we have not seen a commensurate increase in sales. Now, of course, when properties hit the market in October, they're not going to necessarily sell in October. They might sell in November. So perhaps we might see a recovery in these volumes of sales once the market has had an opportunity to digest these new listings. Let's see when the November numbers come out. Okay, so how long has it taken to sell property in Wellington? 37 days on average in October 2023 versus 49 a year ago and 32 years ago. So remember, 30 days 2 years ago, that was right at the very peak of the market, so just coming out of the really hot period there. So 37 days, look, for the last 3 months, we've been 38 days, 34 days, 37 days. So reasonably stable there in the mid to highish 30s. Before that, for sort of 18 months or so, we were significantly higher on a consistent basis. So we're a long way down on sort of the peaks or the highs that we saw in the last 18 months or thereabouts. We're not down to quite the same levels that we saw post-COVID or during the real boom times. That tends to be about sort of late 20s to about 30. So in summary, 37 days, hovering around that 35 to 37 days. Not too bad, not nearly as long as it was take before, so not too bad there for vendors. Inventory, we've got 11 weeks worth of supply. So that means if properties continue to sell at the same rate and no more properties came on the market, how long would it take to clear everything that's on the market today? That's 11 weeks. So for the last 5 months, consistently, we've seen either 10 or 11 weeks worth of supply. So for Wellington, on a long-term average basis, about 14 or 15 weeks is normal. So 10 to 11 weeks, that is considerably below normal. So technically that means a seller's market. Right in the early days, like in the heyday of the boom, we were seeing quite often sort of 6, 7, 8 weeks worth of supply. Post-COVID, we were 4, 5, 6, 7. So we're not down at those levels, but still way down on, again, what we've seen over the last 18 months since we came off the big peak, things since the recent slowdown started. So back down to reasonably consistent seller's market over the last 5 months. Again, reasonably good news for vendors thinking of selling. Trade Me listings, this is the gross number of listings advertised on Trade Me, 2,237 as of a couple of days ago when we were recording this, versus 2,735 a year ago and 1,707 2 years ago. So look, we're still 31% more than we saw in November 2021. That was just after the technical peak, so just as the slowdown started. We were only just starting to see listing volumes increase there. 18% down on a year ago. You'll see there the shape of the graph, the blue bar chart. We came down from reasonably high sort of numbers. We were consistently around 2,500 to 3,000 for sort of 12, 15 months there. As of about 6 months ago, we started coming right down as vendors went on strike and as property started to sell again. And just in November, we've seen quite a significant increase. I wouldn't jump to conclusions and conclude that that's a weakening of the market or a return of oversupply, if you like. It's more just a seasonal thing. In spring, we tend to get more listings on the websites. And of course, as we discussed before, we've seen an increase in listings come on during October. We did not see an increase in sales during October. And so obviously that flows through to an increasing number of listings overall on the website. So the question is, will the number of sales now start to increase and start absorbing some of that additional stock? Time will tell. So in summary, folks, Wellington values are rising, albeit slowly. New listing volumes remain reasonably low on a relative basis. We have seen a spring lift in October finally as we sort of came right up to the election. The spring rush, if you like, was late this year, but we finally saw it in October. But the levels we saw in October even are low compared to what's normal for October. Sales volumes remain very low though, and I have to question whether there's a bit of election malaise in there amongst the buyers too. Duration to sell reasonably stable at sort of mid to high-ish 30 days. Inventory remains really low. We've been at 10 to 11 weeks for the last 5 months. We're in a stable seller's market. Trade Me listings are recovering as is normal for spring. And so the summary for sellers is that the market is firming. Values are rising slowly. Not a bad time to sell. Buyers, I wouldn't recommend you wait further for things to improve. Big thanks as normal to Real Estate Institute and realestate.co.nz for the data. This has been Adam at Low & Co. Thanks for checking in, and if you want some individual advice or you want to talk about property, just get in touch, no problem at all. Otherwise, see you next month. Cheers.